So yeah, I guess I'll just dive right in. I think to me Godwin was one of the more interesting and unknowable characters in the show. I mean, unknowable in the sense that he appears
Hmm.
very mysterious. How fun for you has it been to dive into this role?
It's been a dream, Graham. It's been absolutely delightful. I think I think I knew I was onto a winner where heads of department like Tom in makeup would come up to me and go, when I first read the scripts, I thought I knew who your character was. Now I don't. And I think he's brilliant. Keep it up. And that's the thing. When you know that you've got the people who are making the show that are reading the scripts well ahead of you and they're loving the journey that you're on, you know that A, you're on to win, and B, you've got a great screenwriter behind your back, and C, the audience are going to love it.
Yeah, I think they will. And so I think Godwin is reminiscent of some interesting characters, especially with that turn we get from him a little bit later on in the first season. And I was
Mm-hmm.
wondering, obviously this is a historical show, but do you look to any other like characters or shows for inspiration, or do you kind of try to keep it as accurate as possible?
I think there's a freshness to Godwin that I haven't seen in other shows. I think there's an element of Littlefinger, and people have said that quite often. I think there's an element of Alan Rickman in Die Hard to it as well, because of Jeb bringing that across. I think there's a Hans Gruber uh, elegance to proceedings of his plotting. But I think what Godwin gets that none of these other people get is the historical journey that he's about to go on, that we can't deviate too far from, because his ambition is one for legacy and dynasty, like the strength of foundations that he provides his son who becomes a king, his daughter who marries a king, like is unquestionable. And to do all that having come from nothing, to do all that having served numerous Viking and Saxon kings and not pissing any of them off too much, like he's quite an incredible character and one that hasn't been represented on screen before in any significant form of these.
Yeah, and like you said, there is that historical story that you have to follow. And I was wondering, you're no stranger to period pieces by any means. Do you
No.
like, do you have like a sort of routine that you go through when you pick up one of these characters? Do you get all the books and do you read about it, or do you kind of stay focused on the script and kind of just try to stay and move with the story?
No, you have to do the history. You have to. And I think what's particularly fun is realizing that all history is interlinked. You can't just look at that period and think that's enough. So hopefully, and maybe people who've watched my back catalogue of historical television dramas, and it's getting bigger by the day, you will hopefully realize that my understanding of European history from 1016 through to the modern day is getting much more based on a huge amount of research. No, I think you have to do that. But I think the realization is that history is always got an agenda. It's written by someone trying to rewrite history after the fact or to make it known to everybody that they were the best. So a pinch of salt helps. Knowing that there are always gaps that you can fill in is great. Yeah, and history is the best source material we've got.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd imagine one of those gaps, one of the most interesting parts of the first few episodes for me was your character's relationship with Laura's character, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, how did you guys like build that dynamic on set? I think some actors, when their characters maybe don't align, kind of stay away from each other. But how did you guys sort of work together to create those scenes?
It was really fun. And I think it's because neither character was really in power. She was always second to a king, and Godwin never had any power because he's just some guy. So, despite them being the two most intelligent characters in the entire show, they couldn't just go out and do something. Now, what's interesting is that they also didn't align on what their ambitions were. But whereas Emma is more overt and expresses her feelings and doubts and concerns about Godwin, Godwin is just much better at keeping his cards played close to his chest. There's, I think it's episode 5 where he, spoiler, saves Emma of Normandy's children, which I think is a gorgeous beat. And what I love about it is that Jeb doesn't think to write a scene where Canute or whoever tells Emma of Normandy that she owes the lives of her children to this man that she wholly mistrusts. And I think that's brilliant. I think that sort of muddiness of Godwin, who does some really light acts, some beautiful, shining good deeds, but also then maybe just the next episode onwards commits something quite atrocious. And I think that's what makes him brilliantly watchable and formulates a great character bond with Laura's Emma. And I think And I know that that is something that develops across a potential second season.